What's up, everybody, and welcome to this week's What's on Kickstarter. Today we're going to be taking a look at some of the great, good, and not so good decks recently released on Kickstarter. But before we jump into it, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel.
And ring the bell.
Steve, I gotta say, this is actually a really short week this week. There are not a ton of new decks, and it's actually kind of a nice reprieve after last week's 14 decks. I think it's nice to see a smaller quantity of decks this week. But I gotta say, it was tough kind of picking out how many were good, great, and needed help there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a short week, which, like you said, is every once in a while is a good thing.
Yes, sometimes, you know, I remember last year we had a couple of those weeks where it was like 20 new decks every week, and those got very tiring very quick.
Yeah, we were also doing our videos a little differently, so.
yes, this new format definitely makes 20 decks a little bit easier to handle than the old format, but
yeah.
The nice thing about it is it makes 4 decks just as easy to handle as 20 decks. So, you ready to check out what we got this week, man?
I want to see.
All right. First up for this week's great campaign, we have the Secret Playing Cards from Chamber of Wonder. Dude, I gotta say, really interesting deck design to it. You know, I know one of the things we mentioned, this kind of fits in with some themes we've seen historically. Really well put together campaign. I really like the way they put all this together. The cool thing about it to me is, you know, we mentioned earlier, this is kind of a Riffle Shuffle-esque campaign. And I think one of the things we always talk about is Riffle Shuffle is a great company to model any campaign off of. So it's interesting to see new creators who are actually using Riffle Shuffle as a supplier also use them as a template.
Yeah, smart.
It really is. I mean, their campaigns do great. We can see right here we have a 2-deck campaign. The goal, in my book, is maybe a little bit low just based on the fact that it's a 2-deck campaign depending on how many they're looking to print each. 4,000 for 2 decks, if they're maybe 500 each, is a little bit more reasonable, but for, you know, 2,500 decks could be a little low. With that in mind, though, they've already 3x'd their goal, so whatever they end up printing, they're probably going to have it covered. I don't know if they're probably in the area to make money yet on this campaign, but yeah, really a nicely done area, though. I would say, though, it is always better to be cautious with the goal and be more accurate with it than be lower for marketing purposes.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Designed by Alba Zapata. Alba does amazing work. She did the gourmet deck for Riffle Shuffle. Absolutely amazing artist. She also does very tattoo-esque style, which I really like if you check out her Instagram profile. Got printed by Taiwan Playing Card Company. Fulfilled, let's see, by Gambler's Warehouse. The odd thing is the fulfillment there is under tuck, which is kind of that threw me for a second. I knew it was there, but I wasn't sure where. I would say that almost should be a separate line item if you're going to split them out between cards and tuck, but I also think when you're doing a features or a highlight section, it is just as acceptable to kind of lump them all together without individual subheaders. You know, this all could have just been one section and it would have made a lot more sense.
It's like they're going to do 2,000 decks.
So I'm curious too if that's going to be 1,000 of each or 2,000 of each. Because that ultimately could impact the cost as well. They're looking at 4,000 decks total. That's a lot. That's a pretty big chunk. Yeah. So I'm gonna assume that they're doing 1,000 each because I think from a price point that makes a lot more sense. But if they manage to do 2,000 each and sell them, good on them. I dig the color to this too, man. The red and green is a solid combo. Obviously, you know, sometimes brings about Christmas vibes. Yeah, but really for this one, because it's not really a Christmas-y kind of style deck with the owl and the snakes, it's not very much reminiscent of that Christmas theme otherwise, so the colors work really well. And I think they're 2 colors that people always enjoy. I personally prefer seeing the traditional red and blue colorways and then a green as maybe an extra, but that's me personally. I think red and blue are probably 2 more popular colors than red and green necessarily. So
yeah. I love that tuck box. It's beautiful.
It really is. I like the interior foiling. I like the detail to it. It's really intricate. Yeah. It's not just like a random pattern inside, which I like.
Yeah, it's kind of like Adam and Eve-ish.
Yeah. You have a really cool snake on the back there. You have an interesting eye in the center back design. Really well designed. And then you have these really fun courts, which fully custom. That's one of the cool things about this deck. It really is a fully custom setup deck here.
Yeah. It's fun.
Yeah. Really nicely
I like those
designed.
nice big ace of spades.
Yeah. Really, really nicely sized.
Oh.
Very cool custom pips across the board. I really think this is a well put together campaign, all things considered. And then you can see, taking again a page from the Riffle Shuffle book there, this Kickstarter exclusive Gilded Edition, which personally I think is a great idea. People love gilded decks. They are getting very popular these days, and I know there's a camp in the playing card world who would say that it's being overplayed, but at the same time they sell, so the demand must be there.
Yeah. Nice
little About Us section. Shipping and fulfillment. The one thing I would say is I'd say the designer and the About Us probably should be together, because I do believe there's an About Us section right down here, Chamber of Wonder. Probably better to put those together and then have the fulfillment above that, just because it's more related to the deck than to the design itself. Really nicely done with the headers on this, though. Really just well put together altogether. And the tuck case will be manufactured by Riffle Shuffle, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, I wonder who... I don't know if they do their own printing.
I think they probably outsource to Gamblers, would be my guess.
Yeah, or another company.
Yeah.
What's the price we're looking at?
We are looking at $18 shipped.
Yeah.
Can't go wrong with that, man. I mean, that's a solid, for a fully custom deck with embossing and foil on the tuck. $18 shipped is a steal these days. So absolutely awesome looking deck for anyone who's digging this. Definitely worth it. The interesting thing is, too, I would highly expect this backer number to get a lot higher soon. It's only 2 days in, but if this doesn't end with at least 400 backers, I'd be shocked.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Well, good luck, Chamber of Wonder. And for this week's first good campaign, we have the Cthulhu Mythos, the Ultimate Lovecraft playing cards. So for anyone, and obviously you can see subject matter wise, this deck is already crushing its goal. $74,000 raised, 1,100 backers. This goes to show the power of the theme. Cthulhu is a huge Lovecraft-esque kind of cult following behind it. Lovecraft is almost mainstream at this point, really, but people love Lovecraft, and so ultimately that's going to drive a lot of the backing behind this. This deck is really interestingly done. We've seen some Cthulhu decks in the past. This looks like a new kind of approach to it all. Very standard in its back design. You have Cthulhu on the back, mirrored back design. Really interesting look to it. Nice colors.
2 different colors.
Yeah, it looks like they're doing
black and a green.
Yeah, black and green edition. So we're looking at 2 decks with a 10,000 goal. So that's about right there, I'd say. Rolls right into a story, which I think is nice. The one thing... Oh, here we go. Key features. 2 different editions. Black and limited, and green is going to be limited. I'd be curious what the limiting is going to be. How many prints are going to be there for it? Is it going to be limited of 1,000, limited of 100? You know, that's always helpful to see. Deluxe tuck box for limited edition, special finish with embossing. So a relatively standard one for the black edition, it sounds like. Premium casino grade paper stock, 320 GSM. Yeah, we talked about this last week too. I think very few people, other than people who are familiar with the printing industry, are going to know what 320 GSM versus 310 GSM actually feel like, or 300 GSM in hand. A lot of times I think it ends up coming down to the printer's name and the stock name, because that's what people easily equate to who aren't in the printing community. So mentioning who the printer is here is going to be very important, because a number of printers could use 320 GSM. One of the things I did notice is in the comments for this, they mentioned that they weren't sure who they were going to use for a printer yet, and they were leaning towards Cartamundi. Cartamundi only has 1 stock right now, which is their B9 Slimline, and I do not believe that is actually a 320 GSM stock. So
I don't think it's premium casino grade.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a contradiction there. Potentially, if you don't know who your printer is yet, you're better off leaving the information out than putting in details which after the campaign may change. That's always a big sticking point with people. Even if it's a change for the better, people do not like to see things change from what they pledge to after the fact. One of the big things with that too is, while I say it's better to leave the print information off than having incorrect print information, the ideal scenario is still having your printer determined pre-launch.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that difficult, you know?
Absolutely agree. It's important to know because a lot of people won't back a Cartamundi deck, or a lot of people won't back a USPCC deck, depending on their preference. And that's something you want to know ahead of time.
Cool box.
Yeah, cool box. Looks like 2 decks in a collector case. Foam inside to accommodate the decks. Very cool. So it's going to be fitted so you won't get much movement in there.
I wish it said how many there were available.
Yeah, that seems to be a running theme through this, just mentioning how many those limits are, because again, saying limited and not leaving the number really from a collector's point of view makes it difficult to ascertain whether or not it actually is limited.
Yeah.
You also have this really interesting deck holder here, which be cool to see. It's a kind of a variation on a clip to some extent, which I think is unique there. And then you got this really crazy intricate holders here, which I think are really cool. And obviously Cthulhu themed there. Doesn't look like there's any stretch goals, which again, not the end of the world. Stretch goals can help, but with that in mind, yeah, really interesting to see. Shipping, worldwide shipping available. Costs will be paid later through a pledge manager. So that is one of the big things that I dislike with campaigns like this. Make sure that you're including your shipping from the jump. People budget very tightly with these kind of campaigns, and so saying that we roll into it and it's, what is this here? $15 per deck. Ultimately, you're looking to add another €6 to that. So this is actually coming out to be around a $22 deck, which to me is overpriced for the standard version of this. But being transparent with that from the jump is super important, because a lot of people may budget $45 for 3 decks, and then all of a sudden you come at them later and it's ended up charging them $65. That's a big difference there. You get some of these people who are backing for the larger tiers, which €199, and then all of a sudden your shipping is another $30 on top of it. There's an impact there. There's a budgetary impact that you want to make sure people are aware of from the jump. The other thing it does is not everyone goes through their pledge manager immediately, which means you may get charged your $45 on day 1 when the Kickstarter campaign ends. You may not end up paying that other fee until 2 months later. So it's something to consider if all of a sudden you have a lot of costs associated with it. With that in mind, we highly recommend creators always include shipping in the Kickstarter campaign.
I 100% agree.
Yeah.
There's nothing more. I've had one campaign. I've backed a lot. And I've had one campaign that I had to pay after. And I was like, what the F? I was like, I don't want to pay shipping after.
Yeah.
You know, this is the money that I think the deck cost. And then after I got nailed with the shipping charge, and I'm just, it was upsetting.
Yeah, a lot of campaigns now are getting away from that. I think it's good because it does break up the transparency of it. Really cool to see that they've created a lot of campaigns in the past as well. So it is an established creator. They have 23 campaigns created, all Cthulhu themed, which I think is awesome. So they do have a pretty solid backing to them as well. But the one thing I will say for any creator, established or not, coming into the playing card community, it's always important to be aware of the nuances, like including shipping with the Kickstarter, that are important to the community, because you want to make sure that people feel comfortable backing the campaign.
Yeah.
Dude, absolutely beautiful deck, though. Really well done. I think the big things that really keep this from being a great campaign are just who's going to be printing and who's going to be fulfilling. Both of those very important to list off who's going to be there.
Good luck.
Good luck. And for this week's first Needs Help campaign, we have the Neon Reapers playing cards. Now, this is actually a relaunch of a campaign that we saw a while ago that got some pretty negative feedback from the community due to the lack of prototyping and the nature of the deck they were trying to put together being very advanced compared to what we've seen in the past. So with that in mind, it's good to see them relaunching, redesigned a little bit. The reason there's still a Needs Help campaign, though, is because even though they've built out this campaign and the prototypes for this deck, the campaign itself is still very lackluster. There's no story to it. There's no real features aspect to it, other than, you know, one-time print run limited to 400 to 500 decks. Again, be specific in how many decks you're going to print. If you're going to print 400, print 400. If you're going to print 500, print 500. I personally think the whole design of this is actually really cool. It's kind of a snakeskin patterned coffin box with a metal Grim Reaper on the front. Very unique, something we don't really see every day with these metal appliques on the front of the box itself. We just recently saw that actually with the Regime playing cards, but this original launch was way before that, so this was kind of almost one of the first to come out with this idea of a metallic applique to the front of the box. The one thing I will say too, because of the lack of information in this, I don't know what the box is made out of. Is it made out of cardboard? Is it made out of wood? Is it a sturdier kind of paper stock? All things considered, with a metal piece on the front of it, I want to make sure that it's actually going to hold up to time. They also talk about the gilded edition here, as well as the digital print aspect of it. So they do show the prototypes as well. The one thing that stands out to me, and they mention this here, is a little bit different. The 3D renders, final production will be similar to the 3D renders. The prototype quality versus that on the renders are night and day. I mean, you look at the detail on the skull alone, and the shape and just the finish on that versus this here, completely different. So in my mind, I would have gone the extra distance to make a prototype that was as true to the final product as possible, because if anything, I think this prototype actually diminishes the visible aspect of this campaign a little bit. All things considered, though, it is better to have this than nothing. So good on you for putting that out there and putting the time into making this prototype. I might have gone with a different prototype maker, though, just to make sure it looked as usable as possible, even if there was a higher cost to it, because you can roll that cost into your goal. Yeah, I mean, the spine and everything look really good on it, but that head just looks odd. Looks like an alien skull almost. But
it just looks like something you'd get like at a cheap toy store or something.
And again, like, better to have something versus nothing, but I do think it's important to realize that sometimes there's upfront cost in building this out for prototyping to make sure that people can actually see that it's feasible. This is a step in the right direction. The one thing I will say with this as well is I believe they mentioned that the prototype is made of resin versus the final one's either going to be metal or a high quality resin. They're still up in the air. To me, you need to decide that early on, because if you're going to tell me that, you know, I'm backing for a metal skeleton on the front and then all of a sudden it comes in its resin, again, there's a lot of potential issue there. The other thing that stands out to me is they mentioned who they're going to be printing with TWPCC. They're going to be fulfilling with Gamblers, which I think is great, both reputable companies. The other thing people seem to want from what I've seen in the comments, and I agree with on this one, is let's see this actually applied to a prototype tuck case to make sure that it actually sticks. Because if you look at the back of this, it's actually pretty rounded here, and from my point of view, I don't see a lot of connection points to a cardboard box, potentially cardboard box, since we're not sure what the tuck's made out of, but a cardboard box assumption that is going to hold it on long term. You know, what happens if it gets bumped? Is this going to fall off if it's hot glued on? How is this actually going to be applied? Or is it going to be riveted through the box? You know, that's something to consider as well. This is why, as much as the visual part of a deck is super important, the verbal and the textual part of it is just as important, because you can convey a lot of things that the image can't necessarily do. Like for me, I have open questions on how this connects to the tuck box. That could have been addressed in the text.
Yeah. How much does this go for?
We are looking at 23 for the standard, which doesn't have the skeleton and is not gilded, which is a little pricey. If you take a look at the gilded without the skeleton, you're looking at 31, which again, a little bit on the high side, but a little more reasonable. If you want to get...
There's only 5 though. That's a limit of 5.
Probably because they're looking to push more of them to the, let's see, to the... This is interesting. These tiers are terrible. There's also like 48 tiers. So this is another thing where this just needs a lot of help. Your tiers are very confusing. $23 for the standard deck, to me, even with the custom shape tuck box, is a little bit high. But again, maybe $1 too high, so nothing too crazy. Getting into the gilded one, 31 is not a bad deal. You're adding a relatively inexpensive cost to it. That's perfectly fine. We have the full set, which comes with a single deck with the coffin tuck box and the Reaper on the front. You're looking at 37, which again, depending on the cost for the skull and or the skeleton on the front, reasonable.
So they're saying that's $6 for that skeleton.
Yes, sounds. No, they're saying it's.
Well, it's 31.
No, it's not. It's 23 for the deck without the skeleton. So it's $14 for the skeleton, is what they're saying.
What I'm saying for the gilded one.
So the gilded one with the skeleton is 37. So they're saying it's.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So no, yeah, they're saying it's $6 between those two, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So 14 if you don't get the gilded, or yeah. And I guess maybe because it's an early, maybe it's because it's the early limited, but at the same time, there's a lot of early limited, and I'm not actually seeing like a non-early limited gilded. So very strange tiers. Something to consider. Also, the price points just seem a little crazy on some of these, because you have a whole bunch of tiers that are named the same thing. So early limited gilded edition, $37. Early limited gilded edition, where did it go here? Here you go. Early limited gilded edition for $3.96. But it doesn't say 3 in the title. Like, there were definitely better ways to make this like visible and make it easier to navigate, because you have a lot of tiers. So something to consider there. Refactor the tiers. If this does not fund, I think there's actual interest in this deck, where I would say just retweaking the campaign and the tiers could probably get you a lot closer to that end goal. With that in mind too, 400 to 500 for 5,000 based on the applique on the front and the custom tuck box seems a little low in my book, all things considered. You're looking at potentially a metal piece on the front, which could double your shipping cost depending on the weight. So there's a lot of things to consider this, where maybe $500, $600 is a little low. Raising the goal up to be a little more accurate may be best case there, and then really making sure that you're pushing this as much on social media as possible, because I haven't seen this come across much on social media yet. So
yeah, good luck.
Good luck. All right, so let's check out what else we have this week. First up, for another good deck, we have the Wall Street playing cards. I have to say, a really well put together campaign. Some of the things that to me stand out as needing some work are just the quality of the images themselves. They're not terrible, but they're not great. It's a little hard to read some of the text on a lot of them, and being a very textually based deck, it's important that people can actually see what's there. I love the fact that it's very Wall Street themed. There's a lot of information around what an IPO is, what the S&P 500 is, things like that. But this is also a very niche deck, and I think from that point of view, it might be difficult for this to fund initially, but I think bringing it back to the drawing board and making this even more tweaked or tuned to be as efficient as possible would be helpful here. So think storyline, think better images, think along the lines of how do you get this marketed out to the people who are going to be interested in this, because I think right now the one thing that's probably holding this back is visibility.
Yeah.
The other thing I love about this campaign is really just the clear visibility into cost on this, and the aspect that at the end it talks about how if at the end of the day this funds the way it's expected, they're not going to make any money, but what they're going to have is a whole bunch of decks that they've always dreamed of having, which I think is really cool, and something to always consider with these campaigns is it's not always about making a profit, it's about getting decks for yourself as well. So from that point of view, really love this campaign, really well put together. It's definitely a good campaign, hits on the fulfillment and printing aspect of it. It comes in at a pretty good price point if you're looking for something interesting that is Wall Street themed.
Good luck.
Yeah, good luck. So Steve, I gotta say, man, super short week this week. What are you planning on backing?
I am keeping my money.
All right, man. Fair enough, fair enough. I'd say for me, I dig the secret campaign. I like the look of it. I think there's a lot of potential behind it. I would definitely be getting on board with that one, but otherwise, yeah, I think I'm holding off a little bit this week as well.
Yeah, I think if there was a blue one, I might jump on it. Yeah. But with the green and red, they're just staying away from those colors.
Dude, I think there's a very good reason that the primary decks that people use, Bicycle, Tally-Ho, all these Copags, are blue and red standard. I think those are the two most popular colors for playing cards. I think a lot of creators who are looking to do that duality and don't want to get into crazy colors should consider red and blue over red and green.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So, with such a short week, we have a little bit of an extended fun campaign week here. I know I'm excited for it, dude, because there were some interesting campaigns this week. It took a little bit of digging to get through a lot of the stuff, but there were some good ones, man.
Yeah, and I kind of broke my rule. Well, not my rule, but I kind of broke your rule.
Yes, it's been a while since you had a light, so I'm okay with a light this time around. And it wasn't a sneaky one. It's a clear light, but I think it's a good campaign, too, so.
It's dope.
Yeah.
It's dope.
You were very excited about it, so I couldn't, shut it down on you there. We had to come up with two this week, so why not?
There's been a couple of weeks that I wanted to do it, but held back, and I'm finally doing it, so I'm pretty happy about that.
Nice, man. Well, you ready to jump into these fun campaigns?
Yeah, let's see what you got.
All right, first up this week, we have the Hug, insulated, collapsible Hug. First off,
you just need a hug.
Dude, I love the name. I love the name because it sounds like mug, but it's like not. And it's not like collapsible mug, like Cug or something like that. I think it's just a fun-looking name.
That's a gross word.
I mean, it's not even a real word, so it's just
I know, it just
sounding.
sounds gross.
But I think the interesting thing about it is collapsible mugs are something, or collapsible cups are something you see all the time, but an insulated version where you can actually keep hot coffee or cold drinks is not something we see that often. So it's a really kind of new take on an old kind of invention, which I always love to see. I think a lot of inventions these days and a lot of things you see on Kickstarter are just improvements upon existing products. So that's always fun and cool to see. Plus, dude, look how small it gets. Like, it would fit in your purse there. So, perfect. I can't imagine someone putting one in their suit pocket, but maybe. I really like the idea behind that, though, and it's 20 ounces, so it's a good size. You're able to get an actual full-size beverage in there, whether it be water or whatever. And again, easily transportable, man. Things like this, I think in this day and age, there's so many people who are trying to live what I would consider minimalist lifestyles where they don't have a ton of space, or people are living in small apartments and so you don't have thousands of square feet to store all this stuff. Travel size mugs like this that can completely collapse saves you a lot of space.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of stuff. I have colanders that are collapsible. They're great.
Yeah, because it makes it so much easier to organize as well.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest things there. But look at this too. Like, even from a price point of view, like, I have to say, this is a little bit pricier than I have seen for some like travel mugs. But if you look at some of like the branded travel mugs like RTC and Contigo and Yeti at this point, you're paying somewhere around a similar price point, and they're not as convenient as a collapsible mug.
Yeah. And they come in like many colors, which is cool.
Yeah, dude, I like the coffee black and the ocean blue personally, but
that ocean blue is nice.
Yeah. Again, Steve and I just love blue. No shocker there.
Yeah.
You look at the screen and everything's blue. But look at that. Stretch goal Kickstarter special eco green.
Oh, cool. Not bad.
Oh, and I really like the way they put this campaign together. I think it's really nicely designed. It's really functional without being too flashy. Sometimes we see a lot of motion graphics like this, and I think they did a nice amount in this one without going over the top. The fact that it's
microwave friendly too. That's dope.
I know, dude. Like, this thing really hits a lot of points that I think people just didn't know you needed in a collapsible mug until they saw this. So,
yeah,
very cool.
Good stuff.
And for a
how much is it? 36?
I think it was 29 shipped for the early bird, which are still available. So one left. So the standard, the standard price is 32, which really isn't too bad. So very nicely done. And for another fun campaign this week, we're pulling in the Bluebox Co-pilot all-in-one smart driving assistant. I have to say, dude, this goes more to my technology side of things. And obviously, anyone who's in a car these days is looking at getting a dash cam for safety purposes, or they're looking at getting, GPS built in, or even Amazon now has the Echo Auto, which is the Alexa in your car. Like, becoming smart vehicles is such a forward-thinking thing these days. I think most vehicles are in one way or another building in voice control. So it's interesting to see a third-party one, and the idea behind this is really cool. There's parts of this campaign that I really like. There's parts of it that make me a little bit leery, but I think the idea behind this being not only a dash cam and a tracking device of some sort, in the sense of you can record your mileage for business purposes, is really cool. The one thing that stood out to me, and Steve, you and I were talking about this a little bit earlier, one of the versions actually has this idea that it can plug into your computer, into your car, and it sounds like it can add autonomous driving functionality to your car, which to me, I don't even know how this is feasible. The idea behind it seems really interesting. But with that in mind, I'm almost a little leery to see a third-party device that is a first-time creator coming to the scene, because who knows how long this company is going to be around. If they do well, they could be around for the next 40 years. If they don't, they could be out in 5, and then do you want an unsupported device driving your car? So the idea behind this sounds really, really cool, to be able to update older cars with autonomous driving capability, but I'm really curious about how it works, what the safety implications are, how well these cameras are built into this device that it can actually do this. Do you need more additional cameras? Do you what's the whole full detail behind this?
Yeah, it's not even approved yet, it says too. So
yeah, it's still awaiting DOT approval. So obviously, if you bought this one and they never got DOT approval, that part of the device would not be functional. The thing about it though too is they actually have two different versions, the AI version and the Co-pilot Lite version. The Lite version does not look like it has the autonomous driving, doesn't have collision warning. Yeah, so there's some interesting aspects of it. I really dig the idea, but that $159 price point for the initial as a dash cam is actually about on par with what you pay for most dash cams these days, other than like the super cheap ones on Amazon.
Yeah.
So really interesting
idea.
Is it?
$159?
Yeah, $159 for the Lite, $259 for the AI version. So a lot of interesting concept behind this. I really like where it's going. One of the cool things about it too, and we see this a lot now, is the whole kind of like check your car yourself here. So it's plugged into your OBD2 reader, which is the port in your car that they use to check your engine codes. And so when an engine light pops up, it can actually tell you what's wrong with it and what it should cost to fix and things like that, which I think is great. That alone
gives you some ammunition before you go into a car shop.
Exactly. So that alone has some inherent value to it. But this whole AI aspect of it intrigues me, but I surely would not want to be a guinea pig for that one.
Yeah,
So, we ready to check out your fun campaigns this week, Steve?
Always, dude.
All right. I have to say, I like both of them. So this first one here really resonates with me because I know once you have these things, you can't go back. So first up for Steve's Fun Campaigns this week, we have the Sleepout Sleep Improving Portable Blackout Curtain.
Dude.
It's a mouthful.
So, it really is. But here's the thing. So we use blackout curtains. Leslie, any hint of light, she has trouble sleeping. She even has like one of those masks that go over her eyes. And so we love it. And we had to put it up with a rod. We actually had to sew 2 blackout curtains together because they weren't blackout enough. But this one looks like it, installs super easy. It's just literally suction cups that go to the corner and they clip on the fabric and boom, it's installed, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
It took us probably like an hour and a half, like including sewing and then installing it, which was just a pain in the butt.
I really dig this idea. And I have blackout curtains as well. And so the idea behind this is really clever. I like it.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, when we're out somewhere that doesn't have blackout blinds and you're trying to go to sleep, it is very difficult. You realize how bright it is at night. Just shocking.
Yeah. Dude, I mean, we have an LED kind of floodlight that's right outside, like across at the other building, but it points right at our window. And it's pretty damn bright. But this looks really dope.
It really does, especially for a travel thing. It's honestly,
the
one thing about it is obviously traveling. If you're flying somewhere, it's a whole nother piece of luggage you have to bring with you. But if you're looking to do this temporarily or you're looking to do it in a bedroom somewhere throughout your house, like feasible.
Yeah, and it's not that expensive either, $100 is pretty average, and you have obviously some Kickstarter discounts at 21% off.
Yeah.
I think it was one a little cheaper than that too. But.
Yeah. $100 Canadian, so $80 US. So
yeah, exactly.
You're making out there.
That's not bad.
Dude, it's really not bad. And it's interesting to think how much sleep impacts your day-to-day. So for anyone who hasn't tried blackout curtains, if you're looking to do it on the cheap, this might actually be the way to go.
Yeah, for sure. I dig it.
Very cool. I like it, man. And so for your second campaign this week, and again, I know you've been looking forward to this one for a while, so it's interesting to see.
I have. I've been looking to get this one on here.
So we have the YSMART Bullet Magnetic Quick Release Micro Flashlight.
The first thing I want to say about this is you can watch the campaign, go through the campaign, and it's pretty cool. But you got to watch the video and listen to the sounds. That's what actually makes you want to buy this product. I'm going to buy it. I'm not going to lie. I'm totally going to buy one of these. It's super dope. I'll buy one for Leslie. And I dig it.
It is really clever, and I like the way that it functions with the magnet on it. And the fact
you take it off your keychain and it lights, you put it right back on and it connects to the magnet and it turns off. It's awesome.
100 lumens is pretty legit for something so small.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. I might have to pick this up for myself as well.
Yeah, things like this, you don't need for, lighting up a woods. You need it to like find your keys or find something you dropped on the floor or, whatever, something like that. So it's definitely powerful.
Dude, very cool.
Yeah.
I dig
Which color you dig?
I'd probably go for the titanium. I'm not a big copper person, to be honest.
Me neither.
But it's interesting to look at the design of it and just the functionality of it. I don't know if I'd go with the ones with the Luminova files there just to light up, but it really is interesting to see.
Totally going with that.
I mean, what are we looking at
cool.
price point wise here? Oof.
I think it's like a $10 difference between the copper and the titanium standard.
I'm not gonna lie though, man, that thing is pretty pricey.
Yeah, I mean it is.
For a tiny flashlight, that's a big chunk out of your wallet.
Yeah, $58. I mean, and 44. So
I might have to stick with my Amazon $9.99 keychain flashlight.
Yeah, I mean it is dope. Does it fall off or anything? Your one on your keychain?
No, you just press the button and it lights up.
Oh yeah.
This is really clever, no doubt about it. That's a high price point on it, but the whole idea behind this is really cool.
Yeah, for sure.
And 2,200 people seem to love it, so
Cool.
Very cool, man. I have to say, some definitely interesting, fun campaigns this week. It's always nice to get to check out even more of what's on Kickstarter. And when there's less decks, obviously, we just have to find more fun things to check out, so it's always interesting to see. But as always, we always love to know what you all would be backing this week, so make sure to leave a comment down below. Let us know what decks you're backing this week, if you're in love with the YSMART bullet flashlight, if you're checking out some Blackout blinds, or anything else under the sun. I saw there was a new movie coming to funding on Kickstarter this week, so if there's anything you're interested in Kickstarter this week, let us know in the comments down below. And while you're at it, make sure to like the video, share, and subscribe.
Peace.